The diner's neon sign flickered against the midnight darkness, casting red and blue shadows across the cracked parking lot, and inside the smell of burnt coffee mixed with grease from the fryer as Emma wiped down table 7 for the third time that hour, her tired eyes barely registering the bell above the door until she heard the laughter, sharp, cruel, and deliberate. If you believe respect should never be optional, like, share, and subscribe. Emma had been working the graveyard shift at Rosie's diner for 2 years, putting herself through nursing school one brutal overnight at a time. Her tips going straight into a college fund that grew slower than she'd hoped. But every dollar mattered when you were 19 and alone in a city that didn't care if you made it or not. The group of 5 teenagers sprawled across the corner booth like they owned the place, their expensive sneakers kicked up on the vinyl seats, and when Emma approached with menus and a polite smile, the ringleader. The ringleader, kid with a designer jacket and a smirk. It screamed. Privlin knocked the water glass off the table with a deliberate flick of his wrist. Ice and liquid cascaded onto the checkered floor. "Oops," he said, his voice dripping with fake innocence. "Guess you better clean that up, sweetheart." And his friends erupted in laughter like he'd just delivered the punchline of the century. The couple at the counter glanced over, saw what was happening, then quickly went back to their pancakes, suddenly fascinated by the syrup patterns on their plates. An older man in a trucker's cap near the window shifted uncomfortably, his jaw tightening, but he said nothing, just stirred his coffee with more force than necessary. Emma felt her face flush hot with humiliation, but she took a slow breath through. Her nose steadied her shaking hands and locked eyes with the kid for just a second, long enough to let him know she saw exactly who he was before grabbing the mop from the back, each step a choice to maintain her dignity even when they were trying to strip it away. She cleaned the spill in silence while they ordered the most expensive items on the menu, their voices deliberately loud, making jokes about the help and whether she could even afford to eat at a place like this. Their crudely performed for each other's entertainment. A bonding ritual built on making someone else feel small. When Emma brought their food, one of the girls accidentally knocked a milkshake to the floor, the glass shattering into a pink explosion of cream and ceramic, and Emma's hands trembled as she bent to clean it, her knees pressing into sticky tile. Her vision blurring with tears she refused to let fall. Then a quiet voice cut through the chaos. A younger boy from their group, maybe 14, saying, "Hey, that's messed up. She didn't do anything to us." And though the ringleader shot him a look that could freeze fire and told him to chill out, something had shifted a witness from within their ranks. A crack in the united front of cruelty. The kitchen door swung open with a metallic creak, the sound of hinges that had seen 1,000 rushed orders, 1,000 emergencies. 1,000 moments that changed everything, and 3 figures emerged from the back, moving with the synchronized purpose of people who'd worked together for years. Leading them was Marcus the night cook, a man in his 50s, with tattoo-covered forearms and eyes that had seen too much to tolerate seeing this. Followed by Rita, the day shift manager who'd stayed late to do inventory, and Tommy the dishwasher who was built like he could lift the whole diner if he needed to. Marcus didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to, he simply walked to the booth, positioned himself between the teenagers and Emma, and said in a tone that carried the weight of absolute authority, "I think it's time for you kids to leave, and you can pay for what you ordered. Plus the damages. Or we can call your parents and the police." The color drained from the ringleader's face faster than water down a drain, his swagger evaporating as he suddenly realized that actions have consequences, that adults don't always look away, that the real world doesn't care about his dad's money or his Instagram followers. Rita stepped forward with her phone already out, camera pointed at the booth, and said in a voice sweet as honey and sharp as broken glass, "I've got video of the last 10 minutes from our security system, and I'm happy to share it with Harrison Prep Academy, since that's where your jackets say you go. I'm sure they'd love to see how their students behave in public," and the threat landed like a physical blow, turning teenage arrogance into genuine fear. Tommy moved to Emma's side, gently taking them up from her hands and finishing the cleanup himself, his presence a shield, his actions saying everything words couldn't. "You're not alone. You're not invisible. You matter to us." The teenagers scrambled to pull out their wallets. Throwing cash on the table with shaking hands more than enough to cover the bill and damages. Suddenly desperate to escape before this got back to their parents, before it showed up on their permanent records, before they faced real consequences for treating another human being like garbage. As they rushed toward the door, Marcus called out, "And you owe Emma an apology." A real one. Or that footage goes to your school first thing Monday morning, and one by one they turn back, mumbling sorry with downcast eyes. Their apologies clumsy and embarrassed, but genuine enough that Emma could see they'd actually learned something tonight. The ringleader was last, his voice barely a whisper as he said, "I'm sorry. That was really messed up. I shouldn't have treated you like that." And for the first time all night, he looked like what he actually was. Cared kid who'd just learned that being cruel doesn't make you powerful. It makes you small. After they left the diner, fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic on the highway. And Emma stood there shaking not with fear anymore, but with the overwhelming feeling of being defended, of mattering to people who barely knew her. Marcus pulled an envelope from his apron pocket, the tips from the jar behind the counter that the staff had been saving for Emma's tuition, and he pressed it into her palm with both hands like he was passing along something sacred, saying, "We take care of our own here, kid, and you're one of the good ones. Don't let anybody make you forget that." Rita hugged her tight, the kind of hug that says, "I see you. I've been you. You're going to make it." And Tommy gave her a fist bump and a grin that made her laugh, despite the tears now streaming freely down her face. The older man in the trucker's cap walked over before leaving, pressed a $50 bill into her hand, and said, "For your trouble and for keeping your head up, my daughter's about your age, and I hope someone would do the same for her." And Emma realized that maybe more people had been watching than she thought. Maybe shame had kept them silent, but not blind. The couple at the counter left an enormous tip, and as the night wore on, regular customers who'd heard what happened started coming in, ordering coffee and pie they didn't really want, leaving 20s and 50s, transforming Emma's worst shift into something else entirely, a reminder that goodness exists, that people show up, that standing together means something. Sometimes the hardest moments reveal who people really are in the night. Shift at Rosie's diner had shown Emma that she wasn't fighting alone. That dignity isn't something anyone can take from you unless you let them, and that the people who stand up for you when you go and stand up for yourself become family in ways blood never could. Don't ever think your struggle is invisible, that your pain doesn't matter, that nobody cares if you're treated with cruelty, because somewhere in the background, people are watching people who remember what it felt like to be helpless. And when they find their voice, when they step forward, everything changes. Emma finished her shift that night with $500 in tips, a renewed faith in humanity, and a family she'd found in the fluorescent-lit, warmed-up, 24-hour diner where the coffee was always hot and the night shift always had your back. Hit subscribe if this story reminded you that respect isn't optional, that standing up for others is always the right choice, and that the people who work the hardest often deserve the most. Honor and drop a comment below. Have you ever stood up for someone being treated unfairly? Or has someone stood up for you?